Hey everybody, it's 12 o'clock here on the West Coast and 3 o'clock on the East Coast, and we're going to have a really interesting and fun conversation today. For those you know, my name is Dr. Jamie Schwartz. I'm a board certified plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills. I'm also a lipedema specialist at Total Lipedema Care, and I treat lipedema between the United States. I have an office in the Middle East where I think I'm one of the only people there that treats this. And so it's something that's dear to our hearts and something we really enjoy caring for. So today we have a really special guest. We have Kara, who met her, I think, through online social media, which I think how a lot of people do nowadays. And turns out that she has a really bad we'll call it stage 4 lipedema, which means she has lipedema and lymphedema, which is very tricky to treat. A lot of people don't actually like to even handle this. This is the stuff that we like to help people because it's very it really improves their quality of life. And I think you'll hear a little bit of that today, especially from Kara. So we're going to take a look and see if we can get her on. And I think we're connecting. There we go.
Hello.
Oh my God, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing extremely well, really well. It's been a long time,
It
and
has.
I was going to say thank you so much for doing this today. So today is, it's for you and I, it's a little bit of catching up time, of course, and kind of find out how you've been and how you've been doing. But then also, I think it's a good opportunity. You and I, one of our goals is education and really, and letting people know kind of what's going on and what we're trying to do. So today it's an open. I'll answer questions from you, from your audience, from whomever. Same thing, and same thing for both of us. So I'll start by saying, tell us how you're doing.
I'm doing great. I am better than I have been, I think, probably 20 plus years, really. I cannot remember once since the surgery, which would have been February 11th, that my feet have hurt. The feet used to drive me insane, even after just like a brief trip from like my house to the car to work. Like my feet just felt like they were going to like explode
Yeah.
from the pressure of the lymphedema lipedema combination, and they don't swell. I bought shoes off the rack the other day, and that was like a huge ordeal for me. I mean, this was before the whole like shut down, don't leave your house thing. But
Yeah.
my son was like, "Why are you making such a big deal?" And I'm like, "You don't understand. Like, this
Yeah.
has been years that I haven't had to like find specialty shoes or try on something just to be disappointed." So like that was a weird, like huge thing for me. I feel great. I have one little spot that's taking its time to heal, which I knew because I remember with the tattoo healing that the lymph fluid keeps the scabs just a little bit too wet, that they don't want to like go away as quick as they should.
Yeah.
So I was prepared for it. I'm still disappointed, but I just want that to be healed so that I don't obsess about infection.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
just my personal like little issue, but
Yeah, infection, I mean, it's so funny. Infection is rare with all surgeries, and it's really rare with these type of things. But I did we did something, I think it was last week. We were kind of talking about, COVID-19 and actually lipedema and lymphedema. It's interesting every time you hear the government or whomever talk about chronic diseases, talk about diabetes and high blood pressure and all these things and cancer and things. And those are all things that chronically affect your, lymphatic system, your immune system. And so, really, I haven't seen anything about lipedema or lymphedema. And so we put something together to kind of talk about that, to make sure that like there's a whole population of people that make sure that everybody's kind of included in this and make sure that we know, that there's chronic disease is chronic and for a lot of people. So interesting, we're talking about that.
yeah, it
But
definitely adds a level to it. And then like I also have celiac disease, which is autoimmune. So
mhm,
I kind of watch with germs in that aspect because I haven't like ordered takeout like a lot of people have been doing. I've been cooking more at home
Yeah.
because if I accidentally get gluten, it knocks my immune system out and I'm out for like a week.
Wow.
And I can't afford that
Yeah.
with what all's going around right now. So it's been a
Well, let's go back. Let's start, let's start kind of like when you and I first think met in December, January-ish. Tell us about kind of how you were doing then, meaning like how you felt, how you could walk, paint. Just tell us kind of like before, and then give us kind of like where you are now. Because I think, one of the things I do a lot of these consults. I do probably hundreds of these, and I tell everybody that even it's not that we're amazing, it's that we spend time, we care about the surgeries that we're doing, but the results are still astound us and still are, it's amazing to how well people. So if you could kind of enlighten everybody, that would be amazing for us.
yes, we met back in October. I was out in California for a couple other little events. I set up a consult while I was out there, and you and your office staff squeezed me in before this conference that was coming up that weekend. So I was really appreciative that it was able to work into the schedule and work out. And instantly, the minute you and I started talking, you started pointing out things that I felt was an issue and felt was like lipedema related, but every other doctor had said like, oh no, you can't have it there, or it's not real, or whatever excuse they wanted to come up with. So with you being able to pinpoint things that I deep down felt was an issue without me mentioning it first, I was like, okay, he gets it. Like I have finally found somebody that like actually understands this, and I felt heard for the first time. And that was a big reason why I was like, this is who I want to go with. This is who I'm trusting. Because literally for the first time in 37, 38 years, I felt heard. At that time, I was very sluggish. I was very tired. My legs just ached. Like I was sitting on a 6-hour plane ride just to get from Pittsburgh out to LA with some layovers and stuff in between was exhausting. My legs were swollen even more than normal by the end of the trip. I just ached. And then I got to the hotel and I would try to elevate as much as possible, but they never give enough pillows and there's never enough stuff to really set up without having to bring a whole other suitcase of like prep work in a way. So it was a lot of like, I would do one little event and then go rest the rest of the day. It wasn't like a sightseeing fun adventure that like a lot of people could have. I did a photo shoot while out there on the beach under Manhattan Pier, and the walk from the parking lot all the way to the actual ocean on sand, I was like, I'm not going to get back to my car. Like just the sand and the little hills and dunes was like, this is going to like wipe me out. And so that experience and being out there and just feeling of like every little thing was a struggle. Every restaurant I went into, it was packed and it was tiny chairs and tiny seats for like LA bodies, and I didn't fit in. And so I had to think about everything and make it like it was more mentally draining as well. And I just wanted to get to that point of like feeling normal.
It's interesting. It's not even LA bodies for tables and chairs. I love, you can tell I love listening because I learn as much from people as hopefully they can learn from me. And when you were explaining sort of what your normal day is like, and you have to even think about, do they have chairs I can fit in? Are there certain, actually, explain that to us, because literally you almost brought a tear to my eye when you explained it, because it's something that a lot of us take for granted, and it's something where, and actually, let me start from the beginning. I want to just tell people that lipedema is no one's fault. People that have it, there's nothing you could have done differently. There's nothing. Everybody that I talk to with lipedema, I say you're healthier than I am. It's not about that. It's really hard. Most of it is just getting diagnosed and understanding it. That's more than half the battle. Once we get to there, we can deal with the rest. But this is going to be a really, really interesting thing you're about to hear. So, Kara, if you wouldn't mind, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, my day to day, and like I don't even realize how much it's just automatically playing through my head, because I've been dealing with this. Like, I've been pretty close to this size since high school. And so it's been a day-to-day for 20 plus years for me. And it's everything from chairs at a restaurant, walking through a crowded restaurant between tables. If I turn sideways, I'm bumping someone with my butt or my belly. If I'm going hip-wise, I'm hitting both people. Or like my friends will walk this short path and I go around the long way to avoid hitting people. I have to think about booths, like not even just chairs with arms, but some of the booths that don't move like cause issues. And so like going out is a struggle. Cars with seatbelts, some of them don't go far enough, or my hip goes over where the seatbelt clicks. So even if I click it in, then that like part it clicks in is digging up into the hip. So like it's a lot of little things that most people just like don't worry about. Going to a concert or a baseball game or a football game and going through the turnstile. Like, I'm short, so I can't even really go up over the turnstile easily. Like, it's just a whole, and like I forget some of it myself because I think of myself as shoulder width. And I forget that, as you can see behind me, the outline of my hips is a lot wider. And so when my friend James and I did the body outline before we started the surgeries, when I stood up and actually visually saw the difference from a different perspective, like I bawled because I didn't even realize myself visually the difference. And I've stood and had my shoulders like in that hip outline, and there's probably a good 6 inches on each side.
Yeah.
And I kind of joke it's like cat whiskers. Like, they hit before the rest of me does.
You know, it'd be great actually at some time, because we can see the outline behind you, but it'd be really interesting to show people kind of what you did, because that, I mean, like I said, I think a lot about everything. I don't just do surgeries. I don't just operate. I really think a lot, and you have done the same thing. You've almost thought of every aspect, and you know, this has even opened up things that you probably wouldn't even thought of before, but I know you spend a lot of time thinking about it. And so, you know, it's probably brought you a little more in touch with yourself a little bit too, understanding this.
It definitely has. I didn't want to take this opportunity for granted. I didn't want to be like, well, I'm just going to go get surgery and I'm going to be fine. I wanted to like take in every step and have reminders so that 5 years from now, when the new me is the new normal, I don't forget what the struggle was, because I want to continue to educate and help women with this for years to come. Like, I want to be a voice of this. I want my before pictures with the Muppet tattoos to be everywhere. Like, I want that scene. I have no problem. That doesn't need blurred out. Like, I don't need my face blurred out. Like, this is me. This is how my body reacted, and we're fixing it, and it can get better. And like, that's the message I want to get out there. And I want to get the message that like, I'm pretty and worthy of fun and relationships and being a mom and having a good job at this size versus whatever size I get down to. Like, I don't want it to be well, she's got a better life now that she's getting fixed. No, I have a great life. I have an 11-year-old. Yeah. I have a job. I go out. I do these photo shoots. I have friends. Like, I don't let this stop me, and I don't want it to stop other women.
Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting point that you brought up. So, you know, a lot of people focus on lipedema treatment, and we say lymphatic sparing liposuction, and you know that, you know, we've developed some other techniques here, because really I take care of a lot of people with complex disease, and so there's other manual techniques and things that I think even work better that we have to get out. But what people have to understand is this is not cosmetic. We're not doing this to shrink somebody's legs. It really has nothing to do with that. This is about getting out, whether it's fat or not, let's call it diseased area, and kind of starting everything all over again. So it's not about size. It's not about weight. It's not about BMI. I don't focus on any of those things. It's really about what this does to you, and that it makes people it's a long-term chronic inflammatory process, and people have fatigue. They can't walk. I mean, a lot of people that come out here for surgery, they actually use Disneyland for some reason as their mark. You know, the first time they come out, they say I can walk for an hour or whatever it is, and then after a few times they're out here, they're like, I just did 8 hours in Disneyland. That was perfect. So, you know, that's the reason why we do this. It's not about the cosmetic things. Of course, we want to maintain your tattoos as much as possible, but overall, that's what I think people need to understand. So,
Yeah.
in fact, why don't you tell us about that? So, you know, in terms of like the pain that you had or don't have, or kind of tell us the differences now.
The pain difference is really kind of strange. Before, like, I've been trying to avoid the dog stepping on my lower legs as much as possible, because that's like his goal, is to lay on my lap. So I've been trying to avoid that. Absentmindedly, not thinking about it. The other day, he climbed up on the couch and on my lap. And normally, because he's like a 40-pound beagle, he's got some weight to him. Normally it would have been like excruciating pain, and I would have had a bruise on my lower leg in a paw print shape, like in the lymphedema area. And like I felt him standing on me, but it didn't hurt. Like it wasn't drastic. There was no mark afterwards. Now, when he walked up on my thigh, I felt it completely different. And I had a mark on my thigh from where he had put pressure for quite a while. So it was a neat visual, like to see on my end of like, oh, the bottom half is like better. Like it's getting there. Like, you know, the pain is not anywhere near it was. I'm not bruising so easily. Cause I mean, I like, you almost like tap me and I bruise. And I've done that since I was little. Like I've bruised really easy, and kind of figured it was like the ginger paleness. But it's always been my legs more than the rest of me. Even when I was little, like I have a picture of me at like 3, and my legs looked like I was punched. My mom used to joke she was afraid to take me out in the summer, because she would say, like, people are going to think we're abusing you. She's like, you just fall and bruise like that. And so, I mean, it's neat to see some of the stuff, like, looking back, that, like, I feel like it's kind of been around since the start for me. And then, like, hitting, like, 11 and 12 and puberty, like, just kicked it into overdrive. And then it hasn't stopped since.
Okay. And so tell, and with her, I mean, we have to get to the thighs. You and I have, I always said you and I are going to become long-term friends. But even after that, with the areas that we've done, has it helped you with walking? Have you felt, you know, tell us about that also.
Oh yeah, I was out, this was a couple weeks ago, and I left work and I was running errands and getting stuff, kind of prepping for this whole possible shutdown thing and everything. And so I was out, and I was probably out a good 6 to 7 hours, and I was on my feet and I was walking around, and I was like speed walking through some areas to like kind of get some stuff done and get back home. And I like sat down and I took my shoes off and I was like getting ready. And normally that would have been like cue to be like asking my son to like help rub my feet or get like my vibration plate out to like massage my legs. And I sat down and I'm like, my feet don't hurt. My legs don't hurt. Like I don't feel like that like stretch to the balloon, like almost gonna pop feeling that the lymphedema would add to it when they weren't being able to be elevated or like moved around. Like they were just down more than up. And so it was like, this doesn't hurt. This doesn't feel exhausting. And like, I thought when I got back up like an hour later to go back downstairs, like that stepping on them then would be sore. They didn't hurt. And I was like, oh, like I can do stuff. I can be more active. And I have, like, I've been doing more stuff. I've been walking with the dog. I've been like doing stuff with the kid. Or like if I would forget something downstairs, instead of sending him down to get it, like I would just go get it myself now. But yeah, it's definitely like improved, like stuff that would stop me, or I'd be like, if I do too much now, I'm not going to be able to do something later tonight. So I've definitely been able to do like so much more.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting, you know, the reason you and I, or we decided to, to work together and work on this was really because the extraordinary amount of pain that you have. And
Oh, it was a
and that's,
ton.
and some people, just so I can mention this and we can talk about lipedema and I can answer questions, but just because Kara has stage 4 lipolymphedema doesn't mean that if you're stage 1, you don't have pain. Pain, it does not matter which stage. I see people with, you barely think they have lipedema and you can't touch them at all. So it's really the reason I treat this for most people. It's really about the pain and the fatigue and the other things. And so it's not about how bad something is or isn't. So if somebody thinks, hey, I may have this, I don't understand why I have pain, you actually could. It's not about the size at all. So I want people to understand that. But then you and I, one other thing that I wanted to bring up too, this was an interesting conversation we had before surgery. And I said, this may wind up changing you in a lot of different ways, and you'll see down the road. So for people that were, saying to you like, oh, you're doing this to look better or something like that, I told her I think she's going to wind up changing her thoughts and outlook and everything because she's going to feel so much better. And I don't push anybody. I don't tell anybody what to do or how to eat, or I don't do any of those things at all. I just tell people when you start, when we're unhappy with something, we go one way. But when we start getting happy and feeling better about all kinds of things, including our own bodies, we change in a lot of ways too. So it's going to be, this journey for us is going to be interesting together in a lot of ways.
And when at that point, like I would say, you have never once told me that I needed to lose weight first. I needed to change this. I needed to change that. It was like, I remember vividly, we were in your one office, like one room, and we were talking during our first meeting, and you asked me to take my compression stockings off so you could see. And I took the first one off, and you stopped mid-sentence and dropped to your knees on the floor to look at how bad my ankle cuffing was. And without even talking to me, you turned up to your office girl and was like, we're going to do this, this, and this to start and fix this, this, and this. And it was instant concern and care and let's fix the issue, not, well, if you do this and prove to me, then I'll help you. And that to me was like the last little like, okay, I need this. This is, he gets it. He gets that it's not, because I've been told, my whole life, oh, you're lazy, you're fat, you don't do this, you don't do that. It's not that I want to be. It was too painful to do anything. I mean, you saw how bad my ankle cuffing was. Tennis shoes to even go walk, the tongue would rub. Yeah. And then my skin would break down and I'd have like an open sore that then didn't want to heal because of the lymph fluid. So like, to me, walking a mile to shut somebody up, to have then 3 weeks of healing wasn't worth the battle. So it was so refreshing that like your take on it was just, the lymphedema you have is not going to be removed if you go walk a mile. So
actually, what I want to explain kind of my philosophy and thought process on lipedema, because a lot of people get their information from internet and chat rooms and things like that. And so, when a lot of people focus on lipedema, most people focus on fat and they say it's fat, fat, fat. I actually kind of have a slightly different take on that, and that is lipedema is actually not about fat. It's really not. And so, and you'll understand this as I know that blows people's minds, but you'll understand this. Lipedema is a chronic inflammatory process. So people have a connective tissue disorder. Connective tissues are your skin, joints, ligaments, everything, including your blood vessels, arteries, veins, lymphatics. People that have lipedema, their blood vessels are just leakier than other people. So the normal things that are inside normal proteins inside your body leak out into dependent areas like your legs and arms. Your body forms a chronic inflammatory process. So that's where everything comes from. You do grow fat because your body gets inflammation, causes hypoxia. Your body wants to kind of keep growing, and so it creates more fat. It actually tries to create more capillaries to bring more oxygen and more nutrients in. And that's why they're so fragile, because they're created so quickly. So if you touch your skin, you bruise a lot. Think about if you hurt anything, if you ever have any inflammation anywhere, it swells. That's where the edema or the swelling comes from. Think about if you have like a pimple or a cyst or something on your cheek, the inflammation hurts. You touch there, everything around there hurts. So as your nerves are coming through that inflammation, going to your skin, that's where a lot of the pain comes from. And people can't even explain it. Some people say, you can't touch them, but other people say they feel like they have a sunburn, like the nerves don't know what to do with all this inflammatory process. So it's really, like I said, if you think of inflammation as the root cause of everything, and the fat and everything secondarily, that's why we're treating this. And that's what we're trying to get people back from. So does that make sense in a way, or is
Oh
that?
yeah, completely. Because like I've tried saying like, I don't eat a lot. I don't eat like, and I'm gluten free because of the celiac disease. So like even the junk I do eat from time to time is like gluten free already. So there's that added. Like I try to, curb the stuff, but I have noticed even more when I have dairy now, my lower legs puff up more.
Mhm.
And I'm like, crap. Like stuff that I used to be able to deny a little bit for my own, like, oh no, that doesn't affect me. Now
Yeah.
that my lower legs are, toned down and like debulked from the lipedema, I'm noticing what does make me like have the inflammation more. So I can like kind of tone that down.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing a difference in my thighs and arms then. They don't feel as tight and puffy because the like inflammation factors are being pulled away.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that's, I'm going to ask you I'm going to ask you also about, tell me how and we haven't talked in a long time, so this is also a good follow-up for me. Tell me how the lymphedema, because that's always, whenever we're dealing with surgery and swelling and everything, people that have lipolymphedema, it's always obviously harder to treat. But do you have less swelling now? Do you feel like it's easier to treat? Tell us what's going on with that.
Right after surgery, it did puff up like pretty drastic between the combination of like post-surgery swelling and the lymphedema. It was definitely like these are these are tender, these are puffy. Once I did what I like to call hell on earth, the lymphedema wrapping, to get that down, it's the most annoying. It's a love-hate of this feels great, the results, but I hate doing it. Once I did that for a couple weeks to get them down and got measured for new compression, and I got my new compression that properly fit, like so much difference. I noticed it more in my right leg than my left, but my left was my bad leg where I had the worst ankle cuffing and all of that. My left leg is also the one that I injured in high school that kind of actually spurred this all on for me, because I had that injury spot that ballooned up like a football in the front of my leg that got me to Google like swelling in one leg, which led to lymphedema, which then like 10 years later led to lipedema, and like, oh, like my whole life has been a lie in a way of you're just fat, lose weight, and me telling everybody nothing I'm doing works.
Yeah.
So it was one of those moments of like, oh, I'm not crazy. But I notice it.
Yeah.
My right leg stays smaller. I can leave the compression off of it like a little bit longer than my left leg, and I don't notice it puffing up as much. I was like flexing my foot the other day, and I can actually like see like the muscles and stuff like moving in it, which normally my foot was always too puffy to see. So it was like, that was strange. I like sent a video clip to my friend. I'm like, I know this is completely weird, but watch this. And my left leg, I'm noticing that injury spot again. That spot that used to blend in with just the rest of my leg now sticks back out if I don't compress. So like the rest of my leg is normal, and I see just down that lymphedema injury like bump. Okay. So it's definitely a neat vision to see of like how much other like stuff was in my legs.
And do you feel like, and this is, I have an interesting thing to tell you, do you feel like after our surgery that the lymphedema is now, we're not getting rid of it, but it's easier to treat now, it's easier for you to manage?
Yes, I do think it's easier to manage because I feel like the compression can actually squeeze around it and push it out. Where before the compression was just kind of pushing it into the lipedema fat, and the lipedema fat was just trying to absorb it like it had absorbed the other lymph fluid. So now that there's not that like sponge factor to absorb it, it's getting pushed out. Like I can
Yeah.
feel it, like I could definitely feel the compression being like working better.
So I have an interesting thing to tell you. So I have a few other people with lipolymphedema, and one came to me for her second stage, and we were seeing her for her preoperative visit before the surgery. And I looked at her feet, and they looked normal, and they were really, really swollen before. And I looked at her and I said, "What kind of compression are you using?" Because we've only done part of her leg, and she looked at me, she goes, "Honestly, I'm your worst patient ever. I'm wearing no compression at all." And I looked at her and I said, "But your feet and everything." She goes, "Yeah, ever since our first surgery, it's actually gotten better." And, for us, we're still trying to understand, obviously, everybody focuses on, like I said, they focus on fat, focus on lymphatics. I focus slightly differently, but it's amazing to see that, because if we're secondarily making things better for people because of that, then we know we're doing the right thing. So it was, like I said, it's astounding for us sometimes too.
Yeah, I mean, I like another weird little thing is like I could lace all the way up my Converse now. Before it was like halfway up and the tongue would have to be bent over because it wouldn't fit. Now like I can lace them all the way up. I'll use all the holes, and
Perfect.
that helps keep like the feet down a little bit too, because I like tie them good and tight and then does it like puff up. But yeah, I mean, I can have my compression off and do laundry and have them being washed and air drying, and my legs aren't puffing back up. My feet aren't hurting even in just that time frame.
Okay. Well, let's do this. I know a lot of you might even have some questions. I know a lot of your followers and other people do, especially about us or lipedema. If there's some questions you want to ask me or I can help people, just please let me, if there's even something you want to know, um, tell me what I can help with or what we can answer for everyone. So,
A question I get a lot
yeah.
is from some of like my male followers or even just my friends asking how they can help support and maybe point out lipedema to the women in their life that they want to be supportive but without like insulting. So I always say, like, show my Instagram, show it as like, here, look what she's wearing, like kind of introduce me another way and then let me kind of do the talking. Or even just say like, hey, I know you've talked about your legs hurting or you bruise easy or you
Yeah.
feel like that struggle of not being able to lose the weight. Like, talk about this condition. Like I said, I would rather hear from a point of view of like, it's not you, there is something wrong, and like give them that education and information than just like ignore it for them. Um, that's just my take on it. But like as a like specialist in it, what's a good way do you think it would be to approach the topic?
I'll be completely honest with you here. I can say it for other people. I can't even say it for myself right now because I have a dilemma where I specialize in this, and I'm also a plastic surgeon, and I lecture a lot on lipedema, but also like the anatomic differences. So, you know, when I go somewhere, I can notice a lot of people with lipedema, and the question is, what do I do? I've never been one of those people like I know I'm a plastic surgeon, but nobody ever comes to my office and say you need this, this. I just don't do that. I'm always like, how can I help? And so there's so many times I've wanted to go even just mention to people, and it's just hard. I can't do it. I even have there's something even close to us, like a sort of family member, my daughter's, where you kind of want to say something, but I really don't know how. My thing, if I is really to focus on the symptoms for people. Again, I don't ever focus on fat. I never walk up to people, or I would never even say like, "Oh, your legs are large." I would actually start by saying, do your legs hurt? I mean, if I press, I mean, that's because the pain is the real thing. The pain is
Right.
the reason people operate, or why they need a lot of help. And so, I think focusing on the symptoms, the pain, the heaviness, there's other things like brain fog, but the things that you can, quantify, if you're, a lot of people I start diagnosing now are in their, I say their early 30s, because what happens is in our 20s, we're bulletproof. We can be up 24 hours a day. When you start hitting 30, we all, our energy levels are not the same. And if you look at somebody that's 32 with lipedema and 32 without, you'll see some major differences, and they'll start noticing that in their friends and family and say, okay, why can they go and do all these things and I can't? And why can't my dog or my son or somebody lay on my lap? And so, I think, so again, for me, I'm still learning, and I wish I never want to come off, you know how I am. I never want to come off poorly at
Right.
all. So, but I love talking. I would, but I have the same exact issues. So I'm
Yeah,
still
it's
trying to figure it
definitely
out.
like I spot it in so many people now, especially being on Instagram and like the whole like BBW thing being okay now on Instagram and like we're allowed to be seen in public kind of
Mhm.
thing. I see it and there's so many women that I want to be like I want to message them. I want to be like, but I sometimes I'll stop myself because I never want to take away that moment of they're happy and they're living their life. So I don't want to like put something in their head. But at the same time, is that genuine life or is that like Instagram life?
But actually, to go back to that, the genuine, um, everybody, and I do, like I said, hundreds, thousands, I do so many consults. And when people figure it out, because a lot of people have been searching for answers for so long, they've gone to every doctor, they've gone to, and they all get the same answer: lose weight, exercise, diet, whatever it is. But by explaining it, that's part of the reason I actually do want to talk to people, is you actually enlighten people. You can open their eyes to it. It doesn't mean you're telling somebody you're large, go do this or go do that, but it's focusing on, so, and say, if you've had pain for so long, and people don't know that, that's kind of, again, that's what I was thinking, focus on.
Right. For me, even like there's times where like I didn't realize how long or how much day to day dull ache my legs had because like to me that was life.
Yeah.
Like that was just life. A lot of times I'll use my tattoos as like a way to break the ice with it. Because I mean, the question everybody asked when they see tattoos was, did it hurt? And I'm like, it did hurt, but it hurt more because I have, and I kind of like, and then they'll be like, oh, well, what's that? And then I explain it that way. So like I've used them to kind of break the ice that it's not so much focused on like the
Yeah.
fat or your legs are large like mine. Let me help you. But like, this is what I feel. Do you happen to feel it too?
Right.
Kind of.
And somebody actually just wrote, somebody left us a comment and said they wished somebody actually told them this a while ago or a long time ago and said, hey, you might have this. And it's interesting if you watch older movies, back, 50, 60, 70 years ago, you couldn't say the word cancer. You never mentioned it, because then if people, it was like one of those things. And nowadays, if you have breast cancer, I mean, I treat that. It's something that it's just out there. It's normal that we talk about. We have to get to a point where this is actually something normal to talk about, and it's not about, again, as I keep saying, it's not about fat, not about diet,
Right.
not about overweight. It's not at all. It's really truly a disorder. So, um,
Yeah, I completely agree. It needs to be a common thing. That's a huge reason why I do the Instagram and why I told you to use any photos in any lecture or anything you need. You know, like do not hesitate. Just like that's why I said like I want to be plastered everywhere. I want this to be something to help people. I want to people to find the information I wished I was able to find back in 2000 when I injured my leg.
yeah,
Because if I had found out about lipedema when I Googled and found out about lymphedema, that's 20 years. Like, I could have had, I mean, not that my pregnancy was hard, but I was over 300 pounds at my pregnancy because of it. Um, so you add the awkwardness of being pregnant on legs that already don't work well, like
yeah,
that was so difficult. I wouldn't have tolerated stuff that I tolerated in relationships and friendships. My self-esteem was so low because all I was ever told was you're not doing enough to have a good life. So I didn't think I deserved it. I put up with way too much that now I'm like, no, out, see ya.
yeah,
Like, I don't tolerate it. And
yeah,
I want to stop that for other people. Like, I don't want more people to waste their life. Like, I think I said to you in one of our times together, I felt like my 20s were wasted. And like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'll be 40 in like a year and a half. Like, I want to get, you know, into my 40s feeling completely better.
Yeah.
And so like, that's why I want to get this out there. Like, that's why I started tagging it on Instagram, and like not just doing about my outfits and what I wear and what I do. Like, I started tagging and showing the compression and all of that.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're going to keep doing a lot of these, really to one person. It's interesting, I can operate on, hundreds, thousands of people, but by doing things like this, you can affect millions, and it's part of the reason actually we're working on the U.S. standard of care guidelines that, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that some of us, spend our time doing so we can get this out there more. But so somebody asked the question, they said, can you have lipedema and lymphedema? And yep. So the answer is yes. However, I do want to tell you that I see hundreds of consults, and everybody has been told that they have lymphedema. And probably the percentage of people that I see with lymphedema, actually, it doesn't matter how stage or how big things are, it's probably less than 10%. It's not a huge amount of people that actually have it, but everybody has been told they have lymphedema. So it's, again, it's all about, it's about education. It really is. So.
How did you get into like the specialty of this?
So for me, it was kind of I'll say it was actually roundabout, and I'll do it as quickly as possible to not bore people because I want to get to other questions. But I'm from the East Coast. I was recruited out to California. I built a plastic surgery department and a breast reconstructive program for a hospital system. We were a large HMO, millions of people in our primary area, plus like over 4,000 employees. And of course, when you start looking at data, you start looking at if people had gastric bypass and you can decrease hypertension and diabetes and all those things, that people do better, less health issues and everything. So our hospital system didn't have gastric bypass. I started working with our endocrinologist who specialized in weight loss, and we were treating a lot of people based on, he was using medical stuff. I was actually doing a lot of liposuction. I found that we say liposuction does not treat obesity, but we found that if I can liposuction the whole midsection for people that are on their weight loss journey, it actually can jumpstart a lot of things. So we were going towards that. We were seeing a lot of people that were losing 50, 100 more pounds, but yet the same thing. You didn't really notice it. It was the whole upper body was getting smaller. Some people's legs weren't. And so as we started operating and doing more legs, you started noticing that it really was different fat. It wasn't the same. And I can't explain it overall, but it was a different patient population also than someone that was just getting gastric bypass. And so that's kind of how a lot of this started. From there, it's just kind of grown. And I've done everything in the world I could with breast cancer. I've developed our U.S. standard of care guidelines. I still see people from over 10 years ago. And so as I've kind of moved out of the hospital system, I've gotten more into lipedema because it's something that not a lot of people are helping with. For me, it's all about that. It's all about the academic side of it. And when you start taking care of people and like you and hundreds others, and you just start hearing the stories, it just becomes our focus. And for me, if my whole practice is this, we're happy with it. So it's just something that really, it just makes us happy with it. Even to my quick story, my wife wants to go to nursing school. She's a teacher. She started taking classes, and even last summer she wrote her pathophysiology paper on lipedema. Like we're like all in. We're committed. So we're all learning. But
well, I, for one, am grateful that it became kind of like an educational obsession for you, because it has literally changed my life, and I can't wait to like start tackling other parts. Like I want to get to these thighs.
We're gonna get there. So let me see some other questions, people. I think some of your followers. Tell me what else can I answer? What can we?
One that I think is a good thing to ask is, what type of health markers are taken into account when qualifying for surgery? Because I know even myself, was stressing out about that like post-op appointment with my PCP to get cleared for surgery, because we're so used to being told, nope, you're too fat, lose weight
Yeah.
first. And even my own PCP I had mentioned had told me that he could understand why I wanted to take the easy route and get surgery.
It's not easy.
And I was like, I was like fuming.
It's not. It's not easy. So, you know, I sit on for my society, Plastic Surgery Society, and I'm board certified. You know, I've sat on our national patient safety committees. I've done a lot of this stuff, and so, you know, the problem with healthcare in general is that we try to just classify people. Even with COVID right now, we're supposed to say you're chronic, so that, you know, and we use this terrible thing called BMI, which is body mass index, and it's bad. You just take your weight and your height and say, okay, you're obese and you're at high risk for surgeries. And so, and it's actually completely not true, especially as it comes to lipedema. I mean, I take care of people that, I mean, BMI is high, you know, 30 is considered obese. I'm probably over 30 myself, but 40, 50, you know, really high. And most people say, whoa, you can't operate on these people. The reality is, the reason BMI doesn't work is those people that I take care of, they're still healthy. The lipedema fat does not affect you like other fat. It's not like increasing your diabetes risk. It's not hurting your heart at all. I mean, that's what I said. It has nothing to do with that. And so for me, most people that I take care of are actually extremely healthy. Now, I look at everything. I always say there's a risk versus benefit of all surgeries. So if somebody comes in, even if they're sick, but we know that the lipedema can make things worse for them, sometimes it's better. We'll do things in a slower fashion. I'm not going to take out everything from their whole body at one time, but we can still do things safely for people and still get them better. And that's the whole goal, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 5'2", so if we go by BMI, like, I'm more body fat than anything else. And so it was always frustrating to me. But even for my post-op appointment with my PCP to get cleared, he added an EKG, which you hadn't asked for, but he added it. And he was reading the results and said, oh, your heart's actually healthy, and was disappointed. And I was like, yeah, so it's very frustrating. All that you really required with some labs and, you know, make sure I'm not pregnant, that kind of thing. It was very simple. It was very basic. Yeah. I stressed myself out more than I needed to. And it was not on your end. It was all my end and how I knew my PCP was going to be.
Right.
But I didn't want to try to switch to a new doctor when trying to get approved for a surgery. So it was like, which is the worst? Like, you know, find somebody new and him be like, I don't know you enough to approve it. Yeah. Or try to fight with my current one for approval.
Well, again, if you take out the BMI measurement and just look at the person and the entire person, you're, like I said, you're probably healthier than I am. It has nothing to do with that. And so even for I guess even primary doctors, they're doing the right thing. Actually, they're supposed to say, you know, these are certain strict criteria of what it can be, but it really doesn't work in this case. And I really hope we get past that point and we start looking at not just a number for anybody. We shouldn't be classified by a number. We should look at the entire process. And that's what I think is most important.
Yeah, I completely agree. I just want it to be normal. I know another question that was really good. I just gotta find it in my list. Well, somebody was asking how many surgeries in lipedema you've done.
Oh, a lot. We're probably just averaging in a regular week here, 4 to 8 a week. You know, it's a lot. I mean, yeah, it's a lot. In fact, we're actually almost my practice in general is I'm pretty busy in a lot of different ways. I do a lot of even botch surgeries. You've seen the TV show, Paul, and that's what I start at. So I do a lot of things, and actually we're almost lipedema in a way. We're actually almost making it a separate part of our practice to make sure that we can give. We actually give it priority. It sounds weird, but it's like something that I really enjoy caring for. So.
They have also asked, what is the life expectancy of a lipedema patient not treated versus treated?
It's actually a good question. The honest answer is we don't have data on that. My thought process, though, is lipedema, again, does not affect your heart, diabetes. It's a different type of fat, so, or a different type of other stuff. I'm not so worried about the size or the BMI or the amount or whether it's big or small. That's not what I'm worried about. I worry about people getting debilitated from this long term. So if you think about it, when people have lax joints, that's, you know, you have connective tissues. So a lot of people, their knees and their other joints will be more flexible, but also not as strong. A lot of people have knee pain, and if you look at their legs, like their legs are actually kind of pushing inward, and you know the joint's not going well. And at some point, that can start getting more painful. People aren't going to want to walk. It's hard to go to work then. It's hard to do a lot of different things, and so I'm more worried about that aspect of it. That people are almost, you know, you can be in your 30s and not want to walk or do stuff, and you know that's when you see people, you know, twice your age or more than twice your age, and so that's what I think. So I can't tell you if it really is, but just by looking at it, and you probably you probably can say the same thing. But
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I can be more mobile, I think will extend my life versus being how I joked, like the grandma that sits on the couch that you have to bring the baby to her
yeah,
because she can't get up. So like I feel like anytime you can remove damage from a body and remove the toxins that the lymph fluid is supposed to remove out, you're improving the person. Like my allergies are better, my brain fog that you mentioned. Like I started a new job a couple weeks ago and we had 2 weeks of training that I think beforehand I would have like zoned out and been so groggy for. They joke that I have more notes than the instructor because I was just like going through. So I've definitely noticed a huge
yeah,
mental improvement, not just with being able to focus, but how I mentally feel. Like I don't feel like, oh, I don't want to do anything
yeah.
today. Why bother? Like it's like, okay, let's go. What are we doing? Like I can feel it not just physically but mentally. It's like completely
Yeah.
different.
It's great for
They
people
also
to know that.
asked They've also asked if you listen to music during surgery, and if you do, what kind?
I always listen to music during surgery my whole life. I'm a music person. I don't know anything about movies or TV. I don't know anything about celebrities. I just know music. And so I do listen to a lot of country music, which people might find. I'm from New York, so you know they don't let me back in that state anymore. So, um, but the reality is, I actually have my whole life's been about music, and I call it the ADD playlist. It's probably over 10,000, 11,000 songs, and it's probably has everything you've ever wanted to hear and more. So it goes from Andrea Bocelli to Metallica to LL Cool J. So you don't want to know.
I'm trying to think if there's any other. Oh, have you ever seen cases in males? Because isn't it more female dominated?
It's very female dominated. I've only seen it in males a couple of times, and it's actually been in my office in the Middle East. So I'm not saying that's a reason, and that just could be just what happened. But it is rare, but it's the same thing like when I would treat breast cancer. You'll see, I mean, it's rare, but out of thousands of people I've treated breast cancer, there's one male, you know, one or two males throughout the time, but it's very, very rare.
In that same aspect, I know a few of the other lipedema ladies and I have talked. It's not as seen in like the Asian culture. Like you don't see visually, at least you don't see it as much. So we're wondering if that's maybe like a diet thing, like not diet as in like how you like, you know, but like eating inflammation based foods and stuff.
You know, it's interesting. I actually haven't. One thing I stopped doing a long time ago, kind of like I don't look at BMI. I actually don't look at that either. I really don't look at it and say, you know, is it more in Caucasian or African American, or I really don't do that. In the United States, it's hard to do anyway. A lot of people were all mixed from somewhere, and so it's really
True.
hard to say that. And you know, that whole thing with, let's say, Asians will have less of an anti-inflammatory diet, or you know, Mediterranean diets. after, once you've lived here, you become Americanized, whether that's good or bad. So, yeah, I can't really tell you. I wish I had a better answer for that, but yeah, and the reason I don't like to do that also is I don't want somebody to say, well, I'm Asian ancestry, I do have large legs, but maybe so I really don't
Yeah,
focus on that.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
It was just one of the questions that had been
Yeah, no, of course.
asked. Um, some have done like like the fat transfers from like the legs to like the boobs or stuff like that. Would you recommend transferring the lipedema? I personally think it would be too risky.
Yeah, and that's not risky. So it's actually the problem is that's why I don't even like to call it fat because what we take out of people from lipedema really isn't even fat. I mean, it's hard, it's nodular, it isn't, it's not regular healthy fat.
Like a
We've been doing,
beanbag.
I'm sorry?
I feel like a beanbag.
Yeah, we've been doing fat transfer forever. I mean, my history is breast cancer reconstruction. So every time I'd put implants and expanders at the second stage, I would do fat grafting because you make a composite breast, you put their own fat, and then it's just a really nicer way. So I've been doing this for a long, long time. The problem with lipedema fat is it's hard, it's not, it's like scar. And so you're putting that into a place where it's not going to create more lipedema, but it's most likely not going to live. You have a higher chance of it getting like, cysts or just like your body just creating more inflammation to break that down. So I tend not to for anybody. Again, risk versus benefit. I'd love to give, I don't, I'd love to give people a more natural breast or the butt's the big thing nowadays, but I don't think this is good fat to use, honestly.
Yeah, I just feel like it would be like I said, like a beanbag, and that to me doesn't seem appealing at all.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if there's a
Yeah.
question that you see in the list
I
that
don't
you
know.
would.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything. I guess we're actually at Instagram only gives a certain amount of time anyway.
Yeah,
So, I mean, for me, I'm happy to answer anything at any time. We can plan more of these, especially now. Now is a time where, we can use this, obviously in fortunate circumstances for hopefully some positive, and this might be a good way to do that, and really kind of get the word out there for people. So,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm all for it. I like to talk and I like to get the word out about this. So I'm all for, doing these lives or doing like
Yeah.
even pre-recorded stuff to get, awareness out there. And
Uh,
like I've told you, any help you need from me, I'm here.
Thank you. I have two things. Somebody asked a quick question for me, and then I want to finish up. I want you to show the your thing in the background.
Oh, okay.
Somebody asked how I came up with the methods that we do, and probably our manual technique. And I'll just give you the quick thing. I had a patient just like everybody else, really bad lipedema. I mean, you feel the back of her calf. It was like I call it the pebble garden or stone garden. I'm doing my lymphatic sparing liposuction, which is very gentle, and I'm not getting all the nodules out. I wound up trying a little bit harder, and I wound up giving her a little bit of a skin breakdown. And that's when I was like, there's got to be a better way. Nobody's ever described anything. The next patient that I had with that, I literally took my hands like this and started massaging them out. That hurts after a while. I then started using my liposuction. I've done everything. And now we've got it down to a science where, I find that the manual technique is better than liposuction. There's some people that we do very little liposuction on. In fact, for us, we call it lipedema reduction surgery. It's really not about liposuction at all. And so it's really, really changed the way we treat people. It's changed the outcomes that we see. And if you talk to people that have had surgery, years ago, and you'll talk to their physical therapist or MLD therapist, they'll say that they've had surgery before, but they still feel all the nodules. And so now you kind of know why. So, but yeah, let's finish with you. This is important.
Yeah, so this was the outline pre-surgery back at the beginning of February, because I wanted a visual of what and how the shape was beforehand. But like I've said, to stand in front of it, there's my shoulders compared to my hips.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're going to change that, but not only because of the size, just the overall how you feel. And we appreciate you doing this with us because I love working together with people, and you've been a pleasure to work with and really support everybody, not only us. So we really thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, and I thank you for spreading awareness and treating the patients like people and not like car salesmen of like legs are this amount, boobs are this amount. It's definitely personalized, and you listen to our stories and
Yeah,
realize that we are people worthy of feeling good, and that's the
yeah,
bottom line to me.
it is. This whole thing makes us happy too.